So Football Manager tweeted out the other day 8 long-term saves that you can try in FM22. Long-term challenges. And I was actually planning on doing my own recommendation video for challenges that you can do long-term, different clubs. But I decided to hold off and look at the clubs that they suggested and tell you my thoughts on their ideas. Now, right off the bat, they are by no means bad suggestions. I'm not going to hate on any of them. And if you're around here looking for dirt or drama, then you can leave. But before you do, make sure you go and sub to the Clips channel before you leave the building. But their first suggestion is Cologne in the Bundesliga. And I'd argue that this isn't really too much of a long-term save. I've actually seen them finish quite high in the Bundesliga in certain simulations in that first season. I think once I've seen them finish second and a few times finishing in that top 4. And they do have a very decent setup compared to obviously a lot of teams in Germany, or a lot of teams you could pick around the world, and there is a lot of money in the Bundesliga. So as a long-term perspective, I don't really see Cologne as one of those clubs. However, let's look at their reasoning. Like they mention here, they haven't won a domestic trophy since 1983, and in recent years, they have been a bit of a yo-yo team. I've seen them go up and down a few times down to the second Bundesliga, and like they mentioned here, they always seem to be too good for the Bundesliga 2, bounce up and go straight back down. Very much like Norwich and West Brom that we see in England. They do very much have some good talents at the club, and they've mentioned a few of them here. Goal should not be a problem with these 3 players, especially this guy, Mark Uth. He scored 4 against me when I was Leipzig manager, ultimately gave me the boot. Cologne defeated us 4-0 and was fighting for us for that 3rd spot. That's why I don't think this is that hard of a challenge. They do also have some youngsters, as well as players like Jonas Hector, who's fantastic, Katabach and Jan Thielmann, both being exceptionally good players. And I've loaded myself up as Cologne manager just to take more of a bit of a look here. Jan Thielmann, 5-star potential, and Noah Katabach, 5-star, both 3-star current abilities. So these are really your first team players. Thielmann, I mean, I've seen a lot better. He plays up front or on that right-hand side. He's by no means like not a bad player at all. But Noah Katabach, I think you'll agree, looks like a fantastic player. Only at 20 years of age. I've seen big clubs come in for him in rebuilds and stuff like that. So it is going to be a job to keep hold of him. Also, he plays pretty much everywhere. There's only up front and in goal. You can't place him. And you probably would do a job there if you put him there, to be honest. Now, although you don't have a lot in that transfer budget to begin with, or the wage budget, I think your team is pretty much good enough to finish maybe Europa League spots first season, maybe even challenge those Champions League spots. And that's when the money starts coming in, because Bundesliga already have a very high prize money. Every single season, you'll notice your money will just keep going up. Your transfer budget will keep going up. And of course, like when you're in these leagues, you tend to get really good regens, because the German league is full of fantastic youth players. If you're smart and clever like me, and you tend to sign young players at the start and be really good with your transfer business, I would dare say you could probably challenge for Champions League within 5 to 10 years. That would be your ultimate goal. So to be honest, yes, it's a fantastic club to look at. And Podolski, that's one of my favourite all-time players, and he came from this club. 4 out of 10 as a difficulty challenge here. Now, the second suggestion is Clermont Foot 63. A bit more of a smaller club, I think you would agree. And they have mentioned this. They are a bit of a club who creates history in recent years. 2014, they become the first ever professional men's team to be coached by a female manager. That's fantastic, right? I think that's great. There's female managers who I would love to see manage in the Premier League, by all means. The current Chelsea women's manager being one of them. Emma, I think she's fantastic. When I listen to her commentate and talk about football, I think I would love to see you given an opportunity in the men's game as well. So the fact that they've done that is fantastic. They are also in the Liga for the first time under their current boss. So, I mean, the first time that they've ever reached the top flight of French football, this could be a good save for you. So they've mentioned here a few of the players, and you are predicted to finish bottom of the league, but they've got a few players here who might give you a bit of a helping hand in staying in that league. And then ultimately then it's your goal really to overthrow the top teams in France, such as, of course, PSG. That's going to be the main one. When I did France with Strasbourg a few years ago, I finished in the Champions League spots, first or second season. It was just winning the league that was the hardest part. PSG, they just don't seem to lose many games. That's down to you to either win more of them or to actually defeat them yourself, because you can't rely on other teams beating PSG. Now, although I do suggest teams like Le Havre and Auxerre for their fantastic youth setup in France who are in the lower leagues, this isn't a bad suggestion whatsoever, because there is challenging things such as keeping your players. A lot of them go out of contract in that first year. Players obviously have helped you get into the top division, so they're going to be wanting more money than what you're paying them right now. So your wage budget is going to go higher, and that's going to be difficult because if you take a look, their transfer budget is only 1.28 million with no extra wage budget. That's going to be difficult. And if we take a look at their club information, their facilities are not fantastic. The stadium looks great, by the way. I love that. The badge, the purple, the colours, I think it's great. Purple, pink, what would you say that is? So overall, I think this challenge has a difficulty level of about a 6 out of 10, but that's mainly because of PSG being the ultimate factor in trying to win that league. That first league title is always going to be the most tricky one. Let's take a look at the club number 3. Luton Town is the next club on the list. Speaking of yo-yo teams, by the way, because this club seems to go all the way down and come all the way back up. They've mentioned here they've gone into non-league recently for the first time, then they're back up to the Sky Bet Championship. They've done that all in the space of about 10 years, really. So, I mean, they've shown great potential at the start of this season. They have some good players. They've highlighted one here, Alan Campbell. Do I see this as like a difficult club, a long term? I mean, Championship, like they've mentioned, they mentioned this in the post. It is difficult, especially with work permits being a bit of a factor as well. You can't just bring in loads of foreign players anymore. Maybe using the loan market is your best bet here. But once you're in the Prem, a couple of seasons in, the money should be coming your way. It should become more easier. That's where the challenge becomes easier at that point. So I'd actually argue that lower league teams like Plymouth Argyle, for instance, would be one. But I'm, of course, biased being from Plymouth and they've never been in the Premier League. So taking them to the Premier League, I think would mean a little bit more than taking Luton, unless you have an affiliation with Luton. So really, 5 out of 10 for a challenge difficulty. Now, Bochum is the next team on this list. I like this suggestion, really, because as much as I love the Bundesliga, we have another suggestion here from Germany when arguably someone from the lower ends of Germany might have been a better, more interesting suggestion. Cue my video next week, but there is another one from Germany. You'll see that is a better suggestion. But still, Bochum, let's talk about them. They mentioned players. An FM favourite, Bella Kotchap, wonder kid on the game. Been a wonder kid for a while now. Keeping hold of him is going to be difficult. He's 19 at the start of the game, and although his mentals don't look too fantastic, 6'3", great jump and reach, good pace. There's a lot to like about him, to be honest, and get a good value. 5-star potential. It's whether you weigh up keeping hold of him compared to selling him on for a big profit to reinvest in the club. That's your decision that you're going to be making in the early years. Later on, though, when the money starts flowing because you're doing well in the Bundesliga, that's when it gets a lot easier, but they have 0 in the starting transfer budget. So if you start off with this team, that's where you might find it very difficult the first couple of seasons. Now, they actually mentioned in the post about Bochum that they are primed to be a counter-attacking specialist. It literally says there, a lot of their club, a lot of their team, it suits this style of play. So it might be quite interesting to come away from the gegenpress style of tactic, try a low block counter-attacking style at the start. That could be really good and really interesting to try going forward because they do have a bit of a beast up top. This man, Gang Vula, I always see in the top scorer. Whatever league I'm in, if he's in it, he's always there. He just seems to be one of these players who are really good in Football Manager. That 17 pace, 16 strength, very tall. Yeah, he's just a very good player. He will score a lot of goals. So pin your hopes on this man going forward if you take on Bochum. But overall, I would only give this team a 4 out of 10 for difficulty level, being that they're in the Bundesliga, there's a lot of money, and although they are one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga, you have players who are very good in Football Manager to help you survive the drop, with Bella Kotchap, Gang Vula, and Danny Blum. Now, Sutton United, they were promoted recently to the EFL for their first time in 123 years, as highlighted here by Football Manager, and that's why one of the main reasons they made the list. Another reason is that they are quite popular because of the charm of the local football club being run by local people, and that, like they mentioned in the post, is a lot to like about that, and I agree. Making local people successful at the club that they love, that would be great, taking this team all the way to the Premier League. They actually reckon that you could be pushing for mid-table during their first couple of years. So the team isn't too bad, but I don't know. Let's look at some of the finances. They only have 5k in the transfer budget and 1.2 thousand per week in the wage budget available, which is quite a lot for League 2. So maybe some free transfers wouldn't go amiss. They are, of course, famous for that guy who was eating the pie during the FA Cup run. I think they mention it in the post as well, which is another reason to pick Sutton United if you just love the FA Cup like my dad does. My dad would probably do a save like this. But overall, I would give this save a 7 out of 10 for difficulty. You've got a few promotions before you get to the Premier League, which is obviously always difficult, but in the English leagues, a lot of people seem to do it quite easily, back-to-back promotions. 7 out of 10. Now, the third and final suggestion from Germany, and arguably their best suggestion, St. Pauli. Now, this is a very popular team. In the Bundesliga too, St. Pauli are firm favourites for fans across the world due to their unique culture. Let's look more into that. So they are quite well known for things off the pitch more than on it. As we can see from this obviously well-true source of Wikipedia, they have a bit of a cult following, beginning in the 1980s. Their stadium's located in the city's nightlife area near its red light district, which I have no idea what happens around there. The club also adopted the skull and crossbones as their unofficial emblem and banned right-wing national activities in the era when fascist-inspired football hooliganism threatened the game across Europe. A lot, of course, the hooliganism stuff we've seen in the UK quite often during the 80s and early 90s. So this is, you know, as a cult following this club, yeah, there's some very much likable stuff about this. Their fans are absolutely mental, by the way. I've watched like clips of St. Pauli fans. A lot of clubs in Germany have that sort of like ultra fan base, but this one especially for a lower league, absolutely mental. And it's highlighted here as well. They speak about in the 1981 they averaged around 1,600 spectators, which then eventually grew to selling out the 20,000 seater stadium over 10 years later in the 90s. So that's fantastic. As highlighted back on the post for FC St. Pauli, once you're in the big time, once you've got that first promotion, your main goal will be make their stay a permanent one. They've gone up twice in the century into the Bundesliga and finished rock bottom both times, going straight back down. So again, kind of like a yo-yo club, your task is to try and get them to stay there. And I wouldn't say it would be too difficult of a task to get them there in the first place. They have just over 500k as their transfer budget with a decent wage budget and one of the good teams in the league. I mean, where are they predicted? The media actually puts them 7th. So a couple of good signings and a decent tactic and you could be right up there. Not to mention they have some badass kits as well. Their stadium looks fantastic. They have some great fierce rivals with Hamburg and Hansa Rostock, so a historic rival. It's very rare that you see something like that. I really like this club, this suggestion. They also have a club culture signing players under the age of 23 for the first team. I love that. I love club cultures where you have to sign youngsters and build something long term. This is definitely a very good long term suggestion from Football Manager. I'm going to give it a difficulty level of 6 out of 10. Although I like the idea of it and I would definitely implore you to do it, 6 out of 10 for difficulty level because the Bundesliga, like we mentioned, a lot of money in the Bundesliga. Now, I don't know much about Scottish football, but Kelty Hearts is the penultimate team on this list. They are newly promoted for the first time into League 2, that they've clinched promotion last season, and I've seen a few people already starting doing saves with this team, and I'm not surprised, to be honest. Being that they are newly promoted, they're in the bottom league of the Scottish League, yet they have quite a good team for contenders to qualify straight away for the next promotion and make their way up the leagues. With that being your ultimate goal of reaching the Scottish Premier. So we can see here, fantastic badge as well, good stadium, I like that. Does look like it's an artificial pitch, which that's quite interesting. The media predict them to finish first, despite just being promoted, which isn't like something that's rare in Scottish football either. A couple of good signings and you bang, you're up there. They have some good club cultures as well, sign high reputation players. That makes it more tricky, because signing high reputation players is never easy, especially for me. I don't like doing that in the lower leagues. Playing attacking football, yes, everybody loves that. And sign players from the domestic rivals. Oh, you naughty boys. I love that. But the ultimate goal, of course, for Kelty Hearts is to overthrow the two Glaswegian clubs at the top of the Scottish Premier, maybe even challenge in Europe, which is going to be very difficult. So I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10 for difficulty level. Now, the final team on this post is from Poland, and this got me interested. Radomiak Radom. All we hear is Radio Gaga. Love me some Queen. I actually think they spelt the name wrong because I'm pretty sure on the game it's not spelt like that. I'm pretty sure it's Radomiak, but Polish fans, let me know down in the comments. Now, other than getting their name wrong, I am actually really interested in this save, and I do think it's quite appealing due to the fact that Football Manager have put in dynamic youth ratings into the game this year, and that, keeping in mind, is fantastic for building a nation. So Legia Warsaw, like they've mentioned, have been a dominant force in Polish football in recent years, so you've got to overthrow the giant of the league. Although they have won the last 6 titles, 5 of the last 6 titles, they've only won 3 out of their first opening 11 games in real life. I dare say on the game, they're going to be a little bit more trickier than that. They'll probably have better form. So that, to begin with, is already something to overthrow. And this is the first time that they're in the top flight of Poland, which I will refuse to try and pronounce, for 36 years. That's such a long time. So this is built around a solid Polish core as well, with Portuguese and Brazilians in the squad. We all like a Brazilian, of course. And like they mentioned here, you have the tools to suit managers who like structure, good defending, and causing a few upsets. Now, a newly promoted team in 2019, like they mentioned here, finished second and won the cup in Poland recently. So that's going to be difficult to beat, really. So that's your short-term goal, to overthrow teams like this and get yourself up to the top of Polish football. And then, of course, that's when the fun begins. So here we have Radomiak Radom again. That's how I think they're supposed to say it. I think the post has put radio and it's not supposed to be. They have a running track on their stadium. I don't like that, but still, hopefully you can get a stadium built in your name and you won't have to worry about this. See, the media predicts them to finish 16th. I think that is bottom. Yes, second, third from bottom. So you're predicted to finish in the relegation zone. Poland also is quite a fun league. I've seen people manage in Poland before. Second yellow card, did a Building a Nation here. And I think this could be a really good club to do a Build a Nation with, especially like we mentioned with that new dynamic youth ratings. The idea of Building a Nation is once you've started to win the league in Poland, you then have to take them to European glory. But not only that, you have to drag other teams from Poland with you to be successful in Europe by really keeping the best players at your club in your league. When you sell a player, don't sell them to a foreign club. Sell them to players in your league. Keep them domestically at the club. Build the Polish players as well. Play Polish players so that the national team does well. The reputation of the league will increase when you do well in Europe, and that's not just down to your performance, that's down to other teams as well. You're going to need to rely on teams like Legia to help you. Lech Poznan, another team that will help you in Europe. Keep your best players at these clubs, help them in Europe, drag the reputation of the league up, and see if you can compete with the Premier League eventually. And with the dynamic youth ratings, if you get far enough, you might start seeing some unbelievably good Polish players come through your youth teams, other youth teams that you can steal, use, and maybe, just maybe, take over the Polish national team, win a European Cup, win the World Cup. I don't know. But that is the list. What do you make of it? Let me know down in the comments. What side would you like to manage out of this list? Do you have any suggestions for the video I'm going to make in the future? Subscribe if you haven't done so already. 30,000 subscribers, that's our target. Help us get there. And maybe watch this video of me drafting against the #1 ranked player in the world, Coinbird. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.